What if I told you the New York Knicks are considering a move that would stun their own locker room? This isn't about a superstar demand or a blockbuster trade for a big name. No, this is about someone far more important to the fabric of the team. We're talking about Miles McBride, the heart and soul backup guard, the fan favorite who just had a career year and who just announced he's going to be a father. Yet right now, his name is on the trade block. Rumors are flying that the front office could package him in a deal that sends him across the country. This is the cold, hard reality of the NBA business, and it's hitting the Knicks at the worst possible time. Stay locked in, because what happens next could make or break their championship hopes. So the Knicks make a surprise run to the Eastern Conference Finals, and the entire basketball world expects them to run it back. But behind the scenes, the front office is in full-blown panic mode. They just hired a new head coach in Mike Brown. They're staring down a $196 million payroll that leaves them just $11.5 million below the punitive second apron, and they have absolutely zero flexibility to improve this roster. None. So what's the move? How do you get better when you're trapped by the salary cap? You make a trade. And according to Bleacher Report's Zach Buckley, one proposed deal has the Knicks sending fan favorite Miles McBride and a protected 2026 first-round pick to the Sacramento Kings for one thing: guard Keon Ellis. On the surface, it makes no sense. You're trading a developed homegrown talent who just averaged career highs on a team-friendly deal for a less proven player on a different team. But here's the kicker. This isn't about talent. This is about fit and financial desperation. Ellis represents two things McBride doesn't: superior size for defensive versatility and shooting efficiency that might mesh better alongside Jalen Brunson. The Knicks aren't just trading a player, they're trading a problem for a potential solution. And that's the cold, hard reality of NBA business. But the real question is, why would Sacramento even do this? What do they see in Deuce McBride that makes him worth a first-round pick? And is Keon Ellis really the missing piece for a championship contender? The answers to those questions are where this story gets absolutely wild. All right, let's cut straight to the heart of this. The Knicks aren't just flirting with the luxury tax anymore, they're staring down a financial abyss that could define their entire season. We're talking about a $196 million payroll sitting just $11.5 million below the second apron, and that's not just a number, it's a straitjacket. Here's the kicker. When you're this deep into tax territory, you can't just sign players. You can't just make moves. Every adjustment has to come through a trade. And that's where Miles McBride's $4.3 million team-friendly deal becomes one of the most valuable assets on the entire roster. It's not just about his production on the court, it's one of the few tradable contracts that can actually match salary in a deal. But wait, it gets even more complicated. The Knicks aren't just trying to avoid the tax, they're trying to avoid the second apron, which comes with brutal restrictions like frozen draft picks and limited roster flexibility. And with Donovan Mitchell's extension kicking in soon and Jalen Brunson's max deal, the pressure is mounting. Every dollar counts, every move matters. And that's why this front office is even considering trading a fan favorite like McBride. It's not about basketball, it's about cold, hard financial calculus. The proposed trade with Sacramento isn't just about upgrading the roster, it's about surviving the cap crunch. Keon Ellis's smaller contract and two-way potential might not move the needle for most fans, but for a front office staring at a $300 million tax bill, it's a lifeline.
But here's where things get wild. If the Knicks don't make a move, they risk being stuck. No flexibility, no room to add a piece at the deadline, no chance to improve if injuries hit. And in the Eastern Conference, where Cleveland's dealing with injuries and Boston's fallen off a cliff after Tatum's Achilles tear, this was supposed to be New York's year to compete. So the question isn't whether the Knicks will make a move, it's which move leaves them with the best chance to win now without mortgaging their future. And that's where the real drama begins. Because if you think the financials are complicated, wait until you hear what Sacramento's really offering and why this trade could backfire spectacularly. Now let's get into the real nitty-gritty. the cold, hard player comparison that's driving this entire conversation. Why would New York even consider moving McBride for Keon Ellis? On the surface, it sounds like a sideways move at best. But when you break it down piece by piece, the logic, however ruthless, starts to reveal itself. Here's the kicker. This isn't about who's the better player in a vacuum. It's about fit. It's about what each guy brings to a team with championship aspirations. Let's start with Miles McBride. Heart, hustle, improved shooting, a pest on defense. But he's undersized for a two-guard at 6'2", and he's not a natural playmaker. His value is in his energy, his contract, and his growth, but he might have hit his ceiling in this system. Now flip it to Keon Ellis. At 6'6", he's got length. He's a disruptive defender who can guard multiple positions. He shot 38% from three last season. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to make an impact. In other words, he's the prototype for a modern 3-and-D wing, exactly what every contender is craving. But here's where the front office's thinking gets really interesting and really divisive. Ellis is still on a rookie-scale deal. He's cheaper. He's got upside. And most importantly, he fits a positional need on the wing, whereas the Knicks are already stacked with guards. It's a classic case of trading from a position of strength to address a weakness. But is Keon Ellis really the answer? Or is this another case of overthinking it and losing a culture piece in the process? The advanced stats tell part of the story. Ellis had a higher defensive rating, a better steal percentage, and more deflections per minute than McBride last season. But Deuce had a higher usage rate, more clutch minutes, and clearly has the trust of Tom Thibodeau. This isn't just a basketball decision, it's a gamble. A bet on potential over production, on length over heart, on what a player might become rather than what he already is. And if you think that's a risky way to operate, just wait until you hear how the players themselves are reacting behind the scenes. Now let's talk about the human cost of this potential move, because this isn't just about basketball. While front offices are crunching numbers and analyzing analytics, there's a real person at the center of all this speculation.
Just days after these trade rumors started circulating, Miles McBride and his girlfriend Ana Zortea announced they're expecting a baby boy named Ace. Think about that timing. While NBA insiders are debating his trade value, McBride is preparing for fatherhood and putting down roots in New York. This is a 24-year-old who's become a fan favorite, embraced the city, and developed into a key part of the Knicks' identity. But here's where the business gets brutal. That exact connection to New York is what makes him both invaluable to the team culture and expendable as a trade asset. The Knicks locker room reportedly loves McBride. He's the kind of player who brings energy every day, never complains about his role, and has improved every aspect of his game since being drafted. Trading him wouldn't just be a basketball decision, it would send shockwaves through the team's chemistry. Remember, this is the same organization that just made a deep playoff run built on cohesion and trust. Disrupting that chemistry by trading a beloved teammate, especially one who just signed a team-friendly extension through 2027, could have consequences that go far beyond the stat sheet. The players know this business is cold, but that doesn't make it easier when a friend and teammate might be shipped across the country for what essentially amounts to a financial calculation. And for McBride himself, the timing couldn't be more emotionally challenging, preparing for the biggest moment of his personal life while his professional future hangs in the balance. This is the part of NBA business that never shows up in the trade machines or salary cap projections. It's the human element that gets lost in all the speculation. And for a Knicks team that prides itself on culture and continuity, trading McBride would represent a fundamental betrayal of exactly what made them successful. But here's the brutal truth. Championship contenders don't make decisions based on sentiment. They make them based on cold, hard reality. And the reality is that the Knicks have clear needs that McBride might not be able to fill, no matter how much heart he shows. Which brings us to the final piece of this puzzle: what New York is really looking for in return, and whether any trade is actually worth potentially disrupting everything they've built.
Let's zoom out for a minute and look at what the Knicks are really trying to accomplish here. This isn't just about saving money or acquiring a different skill set. This is about addressing fundamental flaws in a roster that's trying to win a championship. The truth is, despite their playoff success, the Knicks have two glaring weaknesses that could derail their entire season. They desperately need a reliable backup center, and they're missing a true playmaker behind Jalen Brunson. Mitchell Robinson's health is always a question mark, and Isaiah Hartenstein's departure left a massive void in their front court rotation. As for the backup point guard spot, McBride is a spark plug, but he's not a natural floor general who can organize an offense and create for others. Here's where the strategy gets interesting. Trading McBride isn't the end game, it's the means to an end. His $4.3 million contract, combined with that potential first-round pick, could be packaged for someone who actually solves one of those problems. Maybe it's a big like Alex Len from Sacramento who provides size and depth behind Robinson. Maybe it's a playmaker who can actually run the second unit. But, and this is a massive but, the proposed deal for Keon Ellis doesn't really address either of those needs. Ellis is another wing, another shooter, another piece in a crowded backcourt. So either the Knicks see something in him that nobody else does, or this is just step one in a larger maneuver.
That's the real gamble here. If they trade McBride for anything other than a clear upgraded center or point guard, they've essentially wasted their best trade asset without fixing what actually ails them. And in a conference where Boston just got better and Philadelphia might land Paul George, standing pat isn't an option. The front office is playing chess while fans are playing checkers. They know they need to consolidate assets to get better. They know sentimental favorites don't win championships. But they also can't afford to misread the market and waste Deuce's value on a lateral move. Which brings us to the final question. Is this specific trade proposal smart business? Or are the Knicks about to make a catastrophic mistake? So after breaking down every angle of this proposed trade, the financials, the fit, the human cost, and the strategic needs, where does that leave us? Is trading Miles McBride a savvy business move or a catastrophic miscalculation? Here's the cold hard truth. Trading McBride itself isn't the mistake. In fact, it's probably inevitable. His contract is one of the few movable assets the Knicks have. And his skill set, while valuable, is replaceable. The real disaster would be how they use that asset. Trading him straight up for Keon Ellis? That feels like a lateral move at best, and a downgrade at worst. Ellis might be longer and cheaper, but he hasn't proven he can handle the playoff intensity and defensive schemes that McBride already has. You don't trade a known playoff contributor for a question mark when you're trying to win a championship. But here's where this gets interesting. If the Knicks use McBride as the centerpiece in a larger deal for that backup center or playmaker they actually need, suddenly this becomes brilliant roster management. Packaging his $4.3 million contract with that first-round pick could net them a genuine difference maker rather than just a different name. The timing is everything. With Mitchell Robinson's injury history and no reliable backup behind Brunson, the Knicks can't afford to waste assets on marginal upgrades. They need impact players, not just different players. And let's not forget the intangible cost. Trading a homegrown talent who just became a father right when he's putting down roots in New York? That's how you lose the locker room. That's how you damage the culture that made you special in the first place. So here's the final verdict. Trading Miles McBride isn't the problem. Trading him for the wrong return would be a franchise-altering mistake. The Knicks front office is playing with fire, and if they're not careful, they might just burn down everything they've built. What do you think? Should the Knicks trade McBride, or would that destroy their chemistry?